Hey everyone. I've just been kind of sitting here today trying to decide what to do this post on. I've had a couple of big things kind of come through in the last day or so. Last night, for one thing, I was lying awake, and I had this set of ideas kind of come crashing through. I'm working with a woman. One of my piano students has actually asked me to now we're just kind of expanding the scope of what we're doing, and I'm coaching her with some of the writing that she's doing. She's an amazing writer and has this incredible story that she's basically been compiling over the course of her life. I'll share more of it when I sort of have more and have her permission to do so. But it's basically a book about a loss that she experienced, which then she basically turned it into the basis of a spiritual life, which has now become her whole life, and just kind of led to transformation after transformation. It's a really inspiring story, and I'm working with her on, basically this is kind of her first creative project that she's seeing through to completion. I mean, she's done creative work all her life, but this is like, writing a book is a new thing. There's a first time for doing that. And my insight has been, I don't have experience writing a book, but I have experience writing all kinds of other things, and, just putting creative projects together, seeing things through from idea to completed project, whether it's a film or a song or a show or a musical last year. So, and this thing was coming up last night. I literally got out of bed to write it down, which is sort of like, the analogy that hit me is that creative work is kind of like giving birth in this weird way. And I know that this is not a new idea on my part, but there's this way in which, in the context of everything I'm doing right now, creative work has there's a particular approach that feels really resonant with me right now, which is when we're doing creative work, and we're actually, really serious about creating a product, taking something from an idea through to a finished piece of some kind, whatever that is. There's a giving birth process, and there's a kind of pain or resistance or whatever you want to call it. There's always, I call it the eye of the needle. I've never done a creative project that didn't kind of have this eye of the needle moment, which is kind of one of these moments where you don't believe it's going to happen, or you're at least tempted to doubt that it will happen. And of course, after you've done this, a couple dozen, 100 times, you start to recognize that moment, and it's no longer such an existential crisis. But the first couple times, it can really be like an existential crisis. It can really feel like, I'll never get this done. It'll never happen. I'm not good enough. All this stuff comes up. And, one of the things that I was kind of clocking in the last day or so is that what I find really remarkable about the analogy between birth and creative work is that the giving birth process, like when a woman is giving birth and she's screaming with the pain of childbirth, we don't assume that there's something wrong. We don't ask her, oh, like this is hurting. Oh, there must be something wrong. What are you holding on to? Like, do you have any past trauma this could be triggered? We assume that the process of a biological life emerging through another biological life involves a certain amount of intensity, and that there's this eye of a needle happening. And I think it's important to keep that in mind in creative work as well, because it's easy to think, especially when you're doing a lot of spiritual work and work around patterns and conditioning, it's easy to think what's coming up is something from my past. It's something from, the block is coming from somewhere within me. And even though that might be true, and of course, the intensity of the creative process can trigger all kinds of stuff to come up. It can trigger all kinds of past baggage. But even without that, there's a real eye of the needle. And there's a kind of, what I'm trying to affirm and encourage is a willingness to embrace that intensity and that potential pain and resistance without it being a problem, just being willing to say if everything is going exactly as it should, and I'm experiencing this incredible intensity of like what it means to give birth to a new idea, a new piece, a new whatever. And so that's kind of where that I just find that analogy, when you think about it in terms of actual birth, it's like, well, yeah, duh. We all accept that that's going to be, I mean, of course, as a man, I can never probably even wrap my head around an iota of what the actual experience is like. I've been on the emotional ride with my wife, but I've not had that experience. But we don't assume there's anything wrong for the fact that it's an incredibly challenging, one of like the threshold moments of a woman's life kind of thing. So because we draw this analogy all the time with creative work, I just think it's worth keeping that in mind and sort of like conceding that what we're doing is really a kind of birth, and there's really a kind of labor pain, and there's really a kind of birthing process that's actually kind of always that intense. And at least in the case of the pieces and the sort of projects that I've been part of that were really valuable and really deeply moving, that has always been the case. It's just never failed. And I've learned to recognize the moment. I've learned now I can kind of get to the moment and see, oh yeah, here we are. It's the eye of the needle. This is the moment when we all believe it's going to go downhill and the whole thing's going to crash and burn. We're never going to make it. This is that moment. And, the more experienced you get, the more you know not to believe that. And you know that you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You keep churning through the process. You've walked this way before. But that doesn't make it any less intense, really. It doesn't. And the fact is, every new creative project is a new level for the individual, for the group. So you're challenged in new ways. It's never, if it's old hat and you're kind of over the creative moment, then it's probably not, you're probably not that invested. It's probably not stretching you in the ways that it wants to in order for you to be evolving. So anyway, that's kind of where I am. I literally got up last night and like wrote that down because it was coming through so loud and clear. And I think working with now with my first creative coaching client, which is super exciting, that's kind of one of the things that that has come up for me as probably part of the topography of what we're going to be navigating over the next couple months. So anyway, that's where I am today, folks. Love you all. Again, I appreciate you all so much. Love that you're in my life. Thank you for watching these videos. Please, like these videos, subscribe, share them. It's really great when I just feel really great when this stuff is getting seen and people are resonating with it. So love you very much. Have a great day. I'll talk to you very soon.